Us filthy Gehennas are winning again as the Sunshine Girls Serenade event is back on the menu, this time with Chiaki and Satsuki being introduced as the new permanent 3-star units, as well as the return of Dress Ako's and Makoto's banners. But remember, no Dress Hina banner rerun, hers only appears during actual anniversaries, so don't get confused. In this video, I will be reviewing Satsuki, whereas Chiaki has already been reviewed in a separate video. Also, for those of you interested in pulling for Dress Ako and Makoto, you can check out my previous review on them. I think it still holds up pretty well, links all in the pinned comment. Anyways, without further ado, here is a short review of Satsuki. Boys, Pandemonium Society's local hypnotist is here to put us in a trance. It's Satsuki. Listen, I ain't a huge fan of her portrait's art style, but god damn, she is fucking hot. Good golly gumdrops, fellas, she doesn't need that pendulum to hypnotize us, cause we are already mesmerized by those two giant weapons of mass destruction. And her slightly exposed bra got my neurons activating and my cock twitching. She also got some godly childbearing hips, heavenly thighs with those high-ridged socks, and that really short skirt, as well as those black boots. They're enough to make a man lose his senses. Not only that, Satsuki is actually quite beautiful. She's got a really pretty face with those alluring yellow eyes, that soft pink curly hair with bangs, those sharp fangs, and those unique looking bloodshot red horns. Finally, it's no surprise that the student with huge mommy milkers and thick legs who likes hypnosis has an extra spicy L2D. Boy, I don't know how or why she's sitting on us while accidentally hypnotizing herself, but I ain't complaining, cause my Bina is entranced and ready for some of the most depraved Zeks that not even Koharu and Hanako can dream of. So, what type of student is Satsuki? Well, she is a permanent special explosive damage dealer whose terrain affinities are as follows: B in urban terrains, S in field, and D indoors. She also uses the following equipment: hat, bag, and watch, with the hat and watch being the priority since they massively contribute to her damage. Let's take a look at Satsuki's skills. With her 3-cost EX, she increases her defense piercing for 7 seconds while dealing damage to one enemy, and the skill can consume up to 3 extra costs, increasing the damage dealt by a fixed 35% for each additional cost consumed. Plus, the increase/decrease skill effects are calculated based on the base cost. Meanwhile, her basic skill, which procs every 35 seconds, reduces one enemy's crit damage rest for 25 seconds. Her enhanced skill increases her crit damage, and her sub-skill boosts all allies' attack. Her enhanced skill plus at UE40 provide her with even more crit damage, and her field combat power is improved from S to SS at UE50. Now, is Satsuki any good? Well, she is currently the strongest explosive special single target DPS unit in the game so far, and this is mainly due to her powerful EX skill. Firstly, it can deal tons of single target burst damage to one enemy with its really high multiplier of 1653% at max level skill, while simultaneously increasing her defense piercing by 696. I'm not too sure about this buff, but from what I understand, it is basically the flat amount of defense that is ignored by the student when dealing damage to a target. So Satsuki should be more effective against enemies with 700 defense or lower, if I'm not mistaken. Not only that, her EX also has the extra cost consumption gimmick similar to Trek Hasumi's and Minori's, helping to further boost its damage. She can use up to 3 additional costs, taking her EX up to an expensive 6 costs, and for each additional one consumed, its damage increases by a fixed 35%, giving her EX a maximum of 105% damage boost if all 3 additional costs are consumed. So ideally, you would want to use up all 3 in order to fully maximize your damage. Speaking of, a downside to her being a special hyper carry is that it can be hard to properly buff her. Sure, there's Aido Sakurako and School Uniform Asuna, both of whom are strong hyper buffers for special DPS units, but they are premium and limited, making them harder to obtain. So if you don't have them, it can be much harder to fully maximize her damage, as she won't receive their potent buffs. Moving on from her EX, Satsuki is able to apply a decent 27.2% crit damage rest debuff onto one enemy for a respectable 25 seconds, increasing the damage that target receives from crits. Plus, it can trigger fairly frequently with its 35-second proc time. Unfortunately, though, this debuff isn't all that important as it doesn't exactly increase the damage dealt by a ton unlike other debuffs, and is just more of a decent nice to have bonus debuff. Her Enhance and Enhance Skill Plus both boost her crit damage, and as usual for powerful DPS units, the latter as well as her UE50 are required especially for harder difficulty content since they greatly improve her damage output. Finally, she has a good universal sub skill, being able to passively increase your entire team's attack by 17.3% at level 10 skill, though do be careful about pairing her with another unit who has this sub as they do not stack. Thus, Satsuki is a strong special rate damage dealer whose main appeal lies in her powerful EX, as it is her main source of damage and it allows her to deal massive single target damage with its defense penetration buff as well as the additional cost consumption gimmick for more oomph. Let's move on to her users. Even though Satsuki is an extremely powerful raid special single target DPS unit, arguably one of the best in the game so far, she hasn't been used in a lot of content due to the problem that most DPS hypercarries are facing right now. There isn't much content for them to truly excel in, as most of the time, striker damage dealers are preferred as their damage output is far superior, particularly cause it's easier to buff them what with the many hyper buffers that we have. Nevertheless, Satsuki's most prominent use so far lies in the newest Gebura raid. For those unaware of this raid's mechanics, striker units deal 75% less damage in this raid, though their cost recovery is increased by 25%, while the damage dealt by special units is increased by 80%. Hence, strong special explosive DPS units like Satsuki, Hibiki, Mashiro, Kenmaki, Uniform Karin, and etc. are highly necessary for this raid as they are much more effective at dealing damage to him. In Satsuki's case, she has become the #1 damage dealer and a meta unit for this raid, being brought into most Sensei's teams, especially for Insane and above. This is because she can deal really high single target damage to him with her EX. As a result of her good multipliers, the extra damage boost from the additional cost consumption, the defense piercing buff she gains, her crit damage self buffs, as well as her excellent mood in his field terrain. Plus, after buffing her with the attack and crit damage buffs from Uniform Asuna and Idol Sakurako respectively, while debuffing Gabi with PJ Yuka, Swimsuit Kana, etc. allows Satsuki to dish out massive amounts of damage with her EX, capable of demolishing his health. Also, her 6 cost EX is less of a worry in this raid since your team's cost recovery is significantly increased whenever the reactor's output reaches 100%. Not to mention, most of the other students that you'll be utilizing have pretty cheap EX skills. Thus, all these have resulted in Satsuki becoming a core unit for this raid, having a place in a lot of Sensei's teams, especially from Insane to Lunatic, as her exorbitant damage output can help to defeat this boss faster and more smoothly, allowing for higher score clears. And she can even help to one-punt this raid on Insane and below, though obviously provided you have the other appropriate units. With all that being said, you technically don't need to own her in your roster. Rather, you may simply borrow her from your club/friends list, something a bunch of JP senseis did during the previous Gabi raid, even on Torment and Lunatic, with it proving effective as a number of them still managed to clear these difficulties. However, not having your own Satsuki means you can only use her once in one of your teams, which can be a problem on Torment and Lunatic where you will need multiple teams. Thus, to overcome this, you will need to invest a lot into other powerful raid special DPS units such as minimum UE40 Hibiki, perhaps a UE30 Swimsuit Fubuki, a UE30 JK Karin, and etc. for your other teams so that you can clear the raid, which is what many of the senseis who only borrowed Satsuki did for Torment and Lunatic. Though for Insane and below, this is less of a problem cause again, having Satsuki and the Idol Girls plus JK Asuna can help you one-punt it. For those of you still confused, let me put it this way. For Gebura, Satsuki is a must-use unit but not a must-own, as you can still borrow her and as long as you put a lot of investment into your other raid special damage dealers for Torment and Lunatic. Finally, the last piece of content that Satsuki has been good in is actually PvP. I won't spend too much time in this part, mainly cause I'm not knowledgeable on PvP, but apparently she has seen quite a bit of use in PvP Season 8 cause not only is it field terrain, but Also, since evasion is greatly reduced as part of this season's gimmick, defensive tanks like Hoshino, Miyako, etc. are the main option, so Satsuki's EX's defense piercing buff can help deal with them as she ignores part of their exorbitant defense. But again, not a PvP expert, so do let me know if I'm mistaken / missed out on anything. So all in all, should you pull for Satsuki? Well, in my opinion, you may pull for her if you really want to excel against Gebura, since she is a vital unit for this raid, and you may also get her to UE40 or UE50 if you wanna take on Torment or Lunatic Gabby, or maybe you wanna use her in another team for other raids that she might be useful in to clean up the boss. You can also pull for her if you're a PvP enthusiast and you wanna do well this season, as she is a solid DPS pick to replace Nagisa, Hibiki, etc. Or perhaps if she is your waifu and you want this hot L2D so that you can do depraved things to her when she's hypnotized. On the flip side, you may skip her since she is currently a niche unit being mainly used for Gabby and this season's PvP. Plus, even for the former, again, you may just borrow her from your club / friends list. Or finally, if you prefer to pull for Chiaki instead like me. Thus, if these apply to you, then you may skip her and just save your paroxysms for the 4th anniversary. And that's all for this review. Again, I'll leave the link to the Chiaki review down in the pinned comment. Go check it out if you haven't, as well as the link to my previous review on Dress Ako and Makoto if you want to. Anyways, that's all from me. Let me know if you're pulling for Satsuki. Good luck with your pulls if you are, and see you tomorrow.